The moonstone crown sat heavy in Ravenna's trembling hands, its ancient power humming against her skin like a living thing. In moments, the Alpha King would discover it missing from his vault, and when he did, she would either save her dying clan or forfeit her life to his fury. The Shadowmere clan had been cursed for 3 moons, now a withering hex that drained their wolves of strength, leaving them barely able to shift. Her younger brother Fenris could no longer walk, his wolf spirit so weak it flickered like a dying candle. The healers said they had days, maybe less, before the first of them began to die. The crown was their only hope. Not to keep, she wasn't fool enough to think she could steal from the Alpha King and live, but to trade. One touch of its moonstone surface to her brother's fevered brow, one moment of its legendary healing power, and the curse would break. Then she would return it and face whatever punishment awaited. Ravenna raced through the obsidian corridors of the northern citadel, her soft leather boots silent against the polished stone. 3 years of studying, the guard rotations, of serving at royal banquets while memorizing every passage and hidden door, had led to this moment. Puzzle. The Harvest Moon Festival had drawn most of the court to the Great Hall, leaving the ancient vault protected by puzzles and traps, rather than wolves. She pressed herself against an alcove as footsteps echoed nearby guards, but moving away from her position, her heart hammered so loud she feared it would give her away. The weight of the crown in her satchel seemed to grow with each step, as if it knew it was being stolen and resented the theft. Almost there, she whispered to herself, thinking of Fenris's gray face, of her mother's tears. The servants' exit was just around the next corner. From there, a stolen horse waited in the forest, and then the 3-day ride to Shadowmere territory. But as Ravenna rounded the corner, she froze. Standing before the servants' door, as if he'd been waiting for her all along, was Darius Nightfang, the Alpha King himself. He shouldn't have been here. He should have been presiding over the festival, accepting tributes from the lesser packs. But there he stood, dressed not in ceremonial robes but in hunting leathers, his silver eyes glowing with an otherworldly light in the darkness. Ravenna had seen him from afar many times, presiding over justice in the Great Hall, leading the wild hunt on festival nights. But she'd never been this close, never felt the full weight of his presence. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge, ancient and terrible. The wolf inside her, usually so brave, wanted to bare its throat in submission. Did you really think I wouldn't sense my own crown being moved? His voice was deep, carrying the rumble of thunder before a storm. The moonstone has been bound to my bloodline for 1,000 years, little thief. Ravenna's hand moved to her satchel, calculating if she could run, if there was any possible escape. But even as the thought formed, she knew it was hopeless. You didn't run from the Alpha King, not if you wanted to live. Please, Ravenna said, forcing herself to meet those silver eyes. I'll return it. I just need to borrow it for 3 days. My clan. The Shadowmere curse. Darius stepped closer, and Ravenna caught his scent pine forests and winter storms, with something wild underneath that made her wolf stir despite her terror. You think my crown can break what the Crimson Witch cast upon your bloodline? He knew. Of course he knew. The Alpha King's intelligence network was legendary, his knowledge of pack affairs absolute. Ravenna lifted her chin, finding courage in desperation. The moonstone has healed worse curses. The old texts say many things. His laugh was dark, dangerous. They also say the crown's power comes with a price. Did you read that part, little scholar? The way he said little scholar made her realize he knew about that too. Her nights in the archives, stealing knowledge meant only for the noble born. Heat flooded her cheeks, but she held her ground. Any price is worth saving them. My brother is 12 winters old. He doesn't deserve to die for our grandfather's sins. Darius circled her slowly, like a predator studying prey. Ravenna stayed perfectly still, though every instinct screamed at her to run. Your grandfather betrayed his oath to my father, sold pack secrets to the southern kingdoms for gold. The Crimson Witch's curse was justice. Then let me bear it alone. The words burst from her before she could stop them. Take the curse from them and put it on me. I'm the one who stole from you. Punish me, not them. The Alpha King stopped directly in front of her, so close she could see flecks of gold in his silver eyes. You would die within hours. A single wolf cannot bear a curse meant for hundreds. Then you know why I need the crown. Ravenna's voice broke. Please, I'll do anything. Serve you for 100 years. Fight in your armies. Whatever you demand. Something shifted in his expression, not mercy exactly, but a calculating interest that was somehow more frightening. Anything? The word hung between them like a blade. Ravenna swallowed hard, remembering her mother's warnings about making bargains with ancient powers. But Fenris's labored breathing echoed in her memory, and she nodded. Darius reached out, his fingers tilting her chin up with surprising gentleness. The crown's power only answers to my bloodline. Even if you took it, placed it upon your brother's brow, spoke every incantation in the old tongue, it would do nothing. You've risked everything for an impossibility. Despair crashed over Ravenna like a wave. Her knees buckled, and she would have fallen if Darius hadn't caught her arms, steadying her with inhuman strength. The crown tumbled from her satchel, rolling across the floor with a sound like thunder. However, he continued, not releasing her, there is another way. Hope sparked painfully in her chest. Tell me. The crown's magic flows through me. I could heal your clan myself. His thumb traced along her jaw, leaving a trail of heat. But such power requires a connection, a binding between us that would change everything you are. Ravenna's wolf recognized the danger before her human mind could process it. This wasn't just a bargain, it was something far more primal, more permanent. What kind of binding? His eyes flashed to pure gold for a moment. You would bear my mark, become mine in ways your little wolf brain cannot yet comprehend. And in return, your clan lives. The great hall fell silent, as Darius led Ravenna inside, her wrist enclosed in his iron grip. Hundreds of eyes turned toward them, noble wolves from every corner of the kingdom, dressed in their finest silks for the Harvest Moon Festival. The music stopped mid-note. Ravenna had never felt smaller, more exposed. Her servant's clothing marked her as an outsider among the glittering crowd. Whispers rose like wind through autumn leaves as recognition dawned on various faces. The Shadowmere girl, the cursed clan's daughter, the thief. My lords and ladies, Ka. Darius's voice carried to every corner of the vast hall without effort. Tonight's entertainment has taken an unexpected turn. He pulled Ravenna to the center of the room, where moments before couples had been dancing. The crown materialized in his free hand. She hadn't even seen him retrieve it. Its moonstones caught the light of 1,000 candles, casting rainbow shadows across the walls. 34. This brave little wolf attempted to steal the crown of shadows. Gasps echoed through the hall. The penalty for such theft is death. Ravenna's heart stopped. He had said he had offered. Unless, Darius continued, his grip on her wrist tightening, the thief accepts an alternative punishment, one that serves as both mercy and justice. TPU 7 Marquesa. Co Maras. Darius Conforti of C. Darius Conviction of Punishment Someone. Darius Lord Valdris, Darius's chief advisor, stepped forward from the crowd. His scarred face showed displeasure. My king, The law is clear. Theft of royal artifacts demands. I am the law. Darius cut him off, his tone leaving no room for argument. And I choose to offer this wolf a different fate. He turned to Ravenna, his voice dropping to something more intimate despite their vast audience. You said anything, little thief? Did you mean it? Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to choose death over whatever this was becoming. But Fenris was dying. Her whole clan was dying. I meant it, she whispered, louder. Let them all hear. Ravenna raised her voice, hating how it shook. I meant it. Anything to save my clan. Then kneel. The command hit her with the force of pure alpha dominance. Her knees hit the marble floor before she could think to resist. Submission to another pack's alpha went against every law of her people, but her wolf couldn't fight his power. Darius released her wrist and circled behind her. She could feel the weight of his presence like a physical thing, pressing against her spine. The Shadowmere clan stands accused of treason, cursed by blood magic for their crimes. Their daughter offers herself in payment for their freedom. His hand settled on the back of her neck, and Ravenna couldn't suppress her shiver. His touch burned even through the fabric of her collar. But freedom requires a price equal to the crime. His fingers traced up to her hairline, and she felt him gathering her long dark hair, pulling it aside to bare her neck. You will bear my mark. You will be bound to me and my pack until the last star falls from the sky. Your will becomes mine. Your wolf answers to mine. Do you accept? This wasn't what she'd thought. Not just servitude, but a true marking, the kind that couldn't be broken, couldn't be escaped. She would belong to him in every way that mattered. Forever. My clan. She managed. You'll heal them? The moment my mark settles on your skin, the curse breaks. Ravenna closed her eyes. Then I accept. The hall erupted in shocked voices, but she barely heard them. Darius's presence behind her had become everything. His breath on her exposed neck, his hand holding her hair aside, the warmth radiating from his body. This may hurt, he murmured, and for a moment, his voice seemed almost gentle. Then his teeth found her neck. The pain was nothing like Ravenna had expected. Not the sharp agony of a wound, but something that went deeper, past flesh, past bone, into the very essence of what she was. She felt Darius's teeth pierce her skin, felt something ancient and wild pour from him into her. Her wolf, which had been cowering in submission, suddenly roared to life. But it wasn't fighting him, it was changing, transforming into something she didn't recognize. Power flooded her veins like liquid moonlight, beautiful and terrible and completely foreign. She must have screamed because the crowd pulled back, but she couldn't hear past the roaring in her ears. Her vision went white, then black, then exploded into colors that didn't exist in the natural world. She could feel every wolf in the hall, their heartbeats, their emotions, their pack bonds like glowing threads. But strongest of all was Darius, not behind her anymore, but somehow inside her thoughts, his presence wrapping around her consciousness like chains made of starlight. His voice echoed in her mind, and her wolf answered without her permission. When he finally released her, Ravenna collapsed forward, catching herself on shaking hands. Blood ran down her neck, but even as she watched, the wounds began to close, not healing like normal injuries, but sealing with threads of silver light that left marks like moonlit scars. Rise, Darius commanded, and her body obeyed before her mind could protest. She stood on unsteady legs, turning to face him, and gasped at what she saw. His eyes were pure gold, his features sharper, more feral. Dark veins, like living shadows traced beneath his skin, following the path from his lips to his throat. He'd marked her. Yes, but somehow the act had marked him too. Impossible, Lord Valdris breathed. The reciprocal bonding, it hasn't happened in 500 years. Darius looked as shocked as everyone else, though he recovered quickly, his expression smoothing into its usual calculating mask. But Ravenna could feel his confusion through their new bond, could sense his carefully hidden alarm. The marking is complete, he announced to the crowd, though his eyes never left Ravenna's face. The Shadowmere clan's curse is broken, their debt paid in full. As if his words had power of their own, and perhaps they did. Ravenna felt something shift in the world. A weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying her whole life suddenly lifted. Somewhere, miles away, she knew Fenris was taking his first full breath in months. "Thank you," she whispered, and hated how her voice broke. Darius stepped closer, his fingers ghosting over the fresh marks on her neck. She shivered at the touch, at the way her body seemed to lean toward him without her consent. "Don't thank me yet, little wolf," he murmured low enough that only she could hear. "You have no idea what you've just become." Xiomara's... The crowd began to disperse, the festival resuming with forced normalcy, though Ravenna could feel their stares, hear their whispers. She was no longer just the cursed clan's daughter, she was the Alpha King's marked one, bound to him in ways that shouldn't have been possible. "Come," Darius commanded, his hand settling on her lower back. "We have much to discuss." As he guided her from the hall, Ravenna caught her reflection in a polished mirror and stumbled. Her brown eyes now held flecks of gold, and the mark on her neck glowed faintly with its own light. But most disturbing of all was the thread she could see when she focused a silver cord connecting her to Darius, pulsing with each heartbeat. She wasn't just marked. She was claimed in a way that transcended normal pack bonds. And judging by the tension in Darius's jaw, the way his own marks hadn't faded, neither of them had expected this. Whatever ancient magic lived in the crown had recognized something between them, something that turned a simple marking into a mate bond. Darius's private chambers were nothing like Ravenna had imagined. Instead of cold stone and martial trophies, the space was filled with ancient books, star charts, and artifacts that hummed with barely contained power. Moonlight streamed through tall windows, casting everything in silver. "Sit," he ordered, gesturing to a chair by the fireplace. "I prefer to stand." The defiance slipped out before she could stop it, and they both froze. She shouldn't have been able to refuse a direct command, not with his mark fresh on her skin. His eyes narrowed. Interesting. He moved to a cabinet, pulling out 2 crystal glasses and a bottle of something amber. "The reciprocal bond appears to have unexpected side effects." "What does that mean?" Ravenna touched the mark on her neck, still warm and tingling. "Lord Valdris said it hasn't happened in centuries." 5 centuries, to be exact. Darius handed her a glass, which she didn't drink from. Her send. "The last time was between Alpha King Morpheus and a witch named Selvana. Their bond was so complete that when one died, the other followed within hours." Ravenna's blood went cold. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying neither of us understood what we were agreeing to." He downed his drink in one swallow. "A normal marking creates obedience, loyalty, a pack bond. But this," he gestured between them with his empty glass, "this is something else entirely." Through their bond, she could feel his emotions, frustration, confusion, and underneath it all, a hunger that made her pulse race. She tried to block him out, to shield her thoughts, but it was like trying to hold back the ocean with her bare hands. "Can it be broken?" she asked. His laugh was bitter. "Death. That's the only way to break a mate bond. And as I just explained, even that might not work." "Mate bond?" The words came out as barely a whisper. "But that's mates are chosen, courted, blessed by the moon. Apparently the moon has a sense of humor. He refilled his glass. Or the crown recognized something we didn't. A knock interrupted them. Enter, Darius called. Lord Valdris stepped in, his expression grim. My king, we have a problem. The Shadowmere wolves, they're transforming. Ravenna shot to her feet. What do you mean transforming? The curse is broken, yes, but... Valdris glanced between them uncomfortably. They're changing into something else. Something more. Your brother has already shifted. His wolf is twice its normal size, and his eyes. He paused. His eyes are gold, like yours. That's impossible, Darius said, but Ravenna could feel his uncertainty through their bond. There's more, Valdris continued. The Crimson Witch has sent a message. She says the breaking of her curse has triggered something ancient, something that should have stayed sleeping. She's coming here. Tonight. Darius's entire body went rigid. Ravenna felt his fear no. His terror flood through their connection before he slammed down mental walls, blocking her out. But it was too late. She'd felt it. The Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in existence, was afraid of the Crimson Witch. Prepare the castle defenses, Darius commanded. Wake the guard, all of them. My lord, she comes under a peace banner. The Crimson Witch's peace is more dangerous than most wolves' war. Darius turned to Ravenna. You need to leave. Now. I'm not going anywhere. Again, the defiance came unbidden. My clan is involved. I have a right. You have no rights. His alpha voice should have dropped her to her knees, but she remained standing, meeting his furious gaze. You stubborn little, he cut himself off, running a hand through his dark hair. The bond won't let me force you. Then I stay. They stared at each other. And through their connection, Ravenna felt something shift in how he saw her, no longer just a thief or a servant, but something else. Something dangerous. Another knock, urgent this time. A guard entered without waiting for permission. My king, she's here. The witch is at the gates. The Crimson Witch didn't look like the monster from stories. She appeared young, perhaps 25 winters, with hair the color of spilled blood and eyes that shifted from green to gold to black with each blink. She entered the throne room alone, her crimson cloak trailing behind her like liquid fire. Darius sat on his obsidian throne, the crown of shadows on his head for the first time since Ravenna had tried to steal it. She stood beside him, he'd insisted on that much, and tried not to fidget under the witch's knowing gaze. Darius Nightfang. The witch's voice was melodious, almost hypnotic. It's been, 30 years since we last met? You've grown into your father's brutality quite nicely. Salvana, Darius replied coldly. Ravenna's head snapped toward him. Salvana the witch from 5 centuries ago, the one who'd shared a reciprocal bond with an Alpha King. But that would make her. Ah, the little thief understands. Salvana's laugh was like breaking glass. Yes, child. I'm far older than I appear. Death couldn't claim me properly after my mate's passing. I exist in between, neither fully alive nor properly dead. A cautionary tale about the bonds you've so rashly formed. You cursed my clan, Ravenna said, surprising herself with her steady voice. Why? Because your grandfather wasn't just selling secrets. Salvana moved closer, her cloak seeming to drink the light. He was selling wolf children to southern slavers, cubs who would never see their families again. The curse was meant to make him watch his own bloodline wither, as those cubs' families watched theirs disappear. Ravenna felt sick. She'd never known the full extent of her grandfather's crimes. But you broke it, Salvana continued, circling them like a shark. Not with the crown's power, but with something far more dangerous. A reciprocal mate bond, the first in 500 years. her eyes fixed on Darius. "Tell me, Alpha King, did you know what would happen when you bit her?" "No," Darius admitted through gritted teeth. "Liar." Sylvana's smile was sharp. "You felt the pull the moment she entered your castle 3 years ago, didn't you? The little servant girl who smelled like moonlight and mystery. You've been watching her, waiting." Ravenna turned to stare at Darius, feeling betrayal rise in her throat. Through their bond, she felt his shame, his guilt, and the truth of the witch's words. "I didn't know it would create this bond," he said quietly, not looking at her. "But you hoped." Sylvana pressed. "You recognized your mate, and when she gave you the perfect excuse, theft, punishable by death, or marking, you took it. Is this true?" Ravenna's voice came out hollow. Darius finally met her eyes. "I felt drawn to you. Yes, but I fought it. I would have let you leave with the crown, would have let you save your clan and disappear. But then you said anything. And my wolf," he stopped, his jaw clenching. His wolf recognized its mate, about to pledge herself to him. Sylvana finished. "And alpha wolves, especially Nightfang alphas, don't let their mates go once found." Ravenna backed away from the throne, from him, but the bond pulled tight between them like a chain, making distance painful. "You manipulated me. I saved your clan," Darius said harshly. "Would you prefer I'd let them die?" "I'd prefer honesty." "Enough." Sylvana's voice cut through their argument. "Your bond is formed, willing or not. But you should know, breaking the curse has awakened something that should have stayed sleeping." The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Frost spread across the windows. "The Shadowmere wolves aren't just healing," Sylvana continued. "They're evolving, becoming what they were before the Great Suppression, before the Nightfang line bound all wolves to human form as their primary shape. Your brother, little thief, is becoming something the world hasn't seen in 1,000 years." "What?" Ravenna whispered. "A true wolf. Not a shifter, not half-human, but pure wolf. The kind that stood as tall as houses, that spoke in dreams, that needed no human form at all." Sylvana's expression was grave. "And if one pack can transform, others will follow. The careful balance your ancestors created, Alpha King, is crumbling." Through their bond, Ravenna felt Darius's world tilt. Everything he'd been raised to protect, to maintain, was unraveling because of their bond. "There must be a way to stop it," he said. Sylvana's smile was sad. "Oh, there is. Break your bond, let the little wolf die, and the magic dies with her. The evolution stops, the old ways stay buried." She paused. "Of course, you'll likely die too, but that's a small price for keeping the world as it is." 3 days passed in tense silence. Ravenna had been given chambers far from Darius's, not that distance helped. The bond sang between them constantly, an ache that grew worse with separation. She could feel his emotions, his thoughts when his guard dropped, his dreams when he finally slept. He was terrified, not of death, but of losing control of the rigid order he'd spent his life maintaining. Ravenna stood on her balcony, watching the full moon rise. When the pain hit, it started in her bones, a deep grinding agony that drove her to her knees. This wasn't like the marks burning or the bond's pull. This was something trying to claw its way out from inside. Darius's voice in her mind. He was suddenly there, having felt her distress through their connection. His hand steadied her shoulders. "I've shifted before," she gasped. "Not like this." His own control seemed strained. "The reciprocal bond, it's changing us both. Your wolf will be different." Every well as were stories, COC. The moon reached its zenith. and Ravenna screamed as her body began to reshape. But this wasn't the smooth shift she'd known her whole life. This was violent, primal, her human form fighting against something far more powerful. When it finally ended, she understood what Selvana had meant. Her wolf was massive, easily twice the size of her normal form. Her fur wasn't the common brown of her clan, but silver-white shot through with veins of gold. When she looked at Darius, she could see their bond, a glowing thread that pulsed with each heartbeat. His thought whispered through her mind, and she felt his awe, his desire, before he locked it away. But the transformation had triggered something else. Across the castle grounds, howls rose, not normal wolf cries, but something deeper, more ancient. The other wolves were changing too, affected by proximity to their bond. "We have to stop this," Darius said aloud, though she understood him perfectly in wolf form, another impossibility. Pasa. Ravenna shifted back, gasping at how easily it happened, how natural it felt. Her human form had changed too, stronger, faster, her senses sharper. How? Before he could answer, a guard burst in. "My king, the Shadowmere wolves have arrived. All of them." And there, he stopped, staring at Ravenna, at the glow that still clung to her skin. "They're what?" Darius demanded. "They're enormous, sire. Like the old stories, and they're demanding to see her, their transformed alpha." "I'm not their alpha," Ravenna protested. "My father." "Your father bent knee to you the moment you transformed," the guard said. "They all did. They felt it through the pack bonds." "You're something new, Lady Ravenna. Something that hasn't existed in 1,000 years." Through the window, she could see them, hundreds of massive wolves, their eyes glowing in the darkness. Her clan, but not as she'd ever known them. Fenris stood at their head. And even from here, she could see he was magnificent, a wolf the size of a bear, his coat midnight black, with stars seeming to shine within it. "This is what the witch warned about," Darius said quietly. "The old ways returning." Maybe the old ways should return. The words left Ravenna's mouth before she could think them through. Maybe keeping us small, keeping us human, was wrong. Darius turned on her, his eyes flashing. The old ways nearly destroyed the world. Wolves the size of buildings, hunting humans to extinction, fighting endless territorial wars. My ancestors created the binding to save everyone, wolf and human alike. Your ancestors created it to control us, Ravenna shot back, surprising herself with her boldness. Through their bond, she felt his anger but also his doubt. A howl rose from outside Fenris, calling to her. Without thinking, Ravenna moved toward the balcony. Darius caught her arm. "Don't. If you answer that call, if you acknowledge their allegiance, there's no going back. You'll be declaring yourself a true alpha, challenging the entire structure of our world." She looked at him, at this king who'd marked her without true consent, who'd known she was his mate and said nothing. "Maybe your structure needs challenging." His grip tightened. "Please, I know you're angry with me, but this is bigger than us. If the packs evolve, if the old magic returns fully, thousands will die in the chaos. Or thousands will finally be free." They stared at each other, the bond between them strained to breaking. Below, her pack howled again, calling for their transformed alpha, their evolved queen. "I forbid it," Darius said, his alpha command filling the room. But Ravenna felt the words slide off her, like water. The reciprocal bond made them equals. He couldn't command her anymore. "You forbid nothing." She walked onto the balcony, and the sight below took her breath away. Not just Shadowmere wolves, but others, lone wolves, packless wanderers, even some from noble houses, all drawn by the call of something ancient awakening. When she appeared, they fell silent. Then, as one, they lowered themselves in submission, not the forced submission of Alpha Command, but willing deference to something they recognized as greater. Sister, Fenris's voice carried on the wind, though his wolf form shouldn't have been able to speak. We are free. We are what we were meant to be. This is madness? Lord Valdris appeared behind them, armed guards at his back. My king, she's creating an army. This is treason. She's not creating anything, Darius said wearily. She's become something the old laws never accounted for, an omega. Terdes, Ravenna turned. A what? Not lesser, as the modern meaning suggests, he explained, pain evident in his voice. The original omegas were the counterbalance to alphas. While alphas commanded through strength, omegas led through unity. They could bond with multiple packs, break down territories, unite wolves who should be enemies. The last omega was killed 1,000 years ago, when my ancestors feared their power to undo the binding. And you think I'm... Look at them. He gestured to the gathered wolves. Shadowmere, Ironwood, Glacier Lake. 3 packs who've been enemies for generations, united under your presence. The crown didn't just recognize you as my mate. It recognized what you could become. My king, Valdris interrupted urgently. The other Alpine kings are mobilizing. They've heard about the transformations. King Aurelius of the Eastern Reaches is calling it an act of war. King Roderick of the Southern Territories demands her execution. Of course they do, Darius muttered. They fear what she represents. Then protect her. Fenris called out, having shifted to human form, though even as a man, he was larger, stronger, his eyes still holding that cosmic light. You marked her. You're bonded. Her enemies are your enemies, Brother King. Brother? Darius's voice was ice. Fenris grinned, all teeth. She's my sister. You're her mate. That makes us family, whether you like it or not. More howls rose in the distance, warning calls. Ravenna's enhanced senses picked up what the others couldn't yet hear, the thunder of approaching armies. They're coming, she said quietly. The other kings, they're coming to kill me. Darius stood perfectly still for a moment, and she felt the war in his mind through their bond. His duty to the old order against his need to protect his mate. The tradition he'd been raised to uphold against the undeniable pull of their connection. Valdris, he said finally, his voice carrying the weight of decision. Seal the castle. Activate the ancient defenses. Purred. My king, surely you're not. I'm protecting my mate. The words rang with finality. Any wolf who threatens her challenges me. Make sure the other kings understand that. This will mean war, Valdris warned. The alliance of kingdoms will fracture. Then let it fracture. Darius moved to stand beside Ravenna, his hand finding hers. The moment they touched, power rippled out from them, visible to every wolf below. The old ways are already returning. Better we guide the transformation than let it consume us. Through their bond, Ravenna felt his fear, his uncertainty, but also his resolve. He was choosing her, choosing change, even though it went against everything he'd been taught. You don't have to do this, she said softly. Yes, I do. He squeezed her hand. I've spent 3 years watching you from afar, denying what my wolf knew from the first moment. I won't make that mistake again. Below them, the transformed wolves howled their approval, a sound that carried for miles, a declaration that echoed off the mountains. Alpha King and his Omega stood together as the first lights of approaching armies appeared on the horizon. The Eastern army arrived at dawn, 10,000 strong. King Aurelius himself led them, his golden armor gleaming in the early light. The southern forces came from the opposite direction, King Roderick's crimson banner flying high. They surrounded the northern citadel completely. Ravenna stood on the battlements with Darius, watching their enemies position themselves. Her transformed wolves, now numbering in the hundreds, waited in the courtyard below. They were outnumbered 20-1. They won't attack immediately, Darius said, his tactical mind working. They'll demand surrender first. Aurelius likes to think himself honorable. As if summoned by his words, a horn sounded. A small party separated from the eastern forces, approaching under a parley banner. "I'll go," Darius said. Quote, "We'll go." Ravenna's tone left no room for argument. They met Aurelius in the field between castle and army. The Eastern king was everything Darius wasn't. Blonde where he was dark, jovial where he was serious, traditional where Darius had just chosen revolution. "Darius, old friend," Aurelius said, though his eyes were cold. "Surrender the aberration, and this ends peacefully." "Her name is Ravenna," Darius replied evenly. "And she's my mate." Aurelius's eyebrows rose. The reciprocal bond? Truly? He studied them more carefully, noting the faint glow that connected them. The stories are true then. How fascinating. Still, she must die. The transformations she's causing, it's unnatural. Unnatural? Ravenna stepped forward. "We're wolves. Shifting is our nature. Your ancestors made us unnatural, forced us into human shapes, made us small and controllable." "Careful, girl," Aurelius warned. "You speak of things you don't understand." "Then explain them." Her voice carried power she didn't know she possessed. "Tell me why the binding was truly created, not the stories you tell cubs, but the truth." Aurelius glanced at Darius. "You haven't told her?" "Told me what?" Darius's jaw clenched. "The binding wasn't just to prevent wars, it was to hide us. To make us appear human enough that we could survive in a world increasingly dominated by humans." "And?" Ravenna pressed, feeling through their bond that there was more. "And to suppress the magic," Aurelius continued. "True wolves, ancient wolves, were magical beings. They could walk in dreams, speak mind to mind across vast distances, heal from almost any wound. Humans feared us, rightfully so. The binding made us manageable, acceptable, safe." "Safe," Ravenna repeated. "You mean weak?" "I mean alive." Aurelius's composure cracked. "Do you think humans with their iron weapons and growing numbers would have let us survive as we were? We adapted or died." Quote, "But humans no longer rule as they did." Ravenna countered. "We've grown strong again, found our own territories. Why maintain the binding when the threat has passed? Because chaos. Because control." Fenris appeared beside them, having approached silently despite his massive size. Other transformed wolves flanked him. "You fear losing your neat little kingdoms, your hierarchies, your power over lesser wolves." Aurelius's hand went to his sword. "You dare!" The ground shook. Everyone turned to see Silvana approaching from the north, but she wasn't alone. Behind her walked things out of legend wolves, the size of houses, their fur seeming to contain star stuff, their eyes burning with ancient intelligence. "The first pack," Darius breathed. "That's impossible. They're extinct." "Sleeping," Silvana corrected, "waiting for an omega to wake them." She smiled at Ravenna. "Your transformation called to them across the veil. They've come to see if this generation of wolves is worthy of the old gifts." One of the ancient wolves spoke, its voice resonating in everyone's mind simultaneously. Aurelius drew his sword. "I won't bow to monsters from the past." The ancient wolf's laugh shook the mountains. "Single combat," Darius said quickly. Understanding the ancient law being invoked. Champions only. If we win, the armies withdraw. If we lose, if you lose, the aberration dies and the transformations cease. Aurelius agreed. No, Ravenna said. If we lose, I'll leave. Go far enough away that my presence won't trigger more transformations. But the wolves who've already changed keep their forms. Aurelius considered, then nodded. Agreed. Choose your champion. I am my own champion, Ravenna said. Everyone stared. Darius grabbed her arm. Absolutely not. Through their bond, she pushed her certainty, her need to do this. The ancient wolves formed the arena with their massive bodies, creating a circle 100 feet across. Aurelius had chosen his champion, Commander Steelclaw, a scarred warrior who'd never lost a formal challenge. Ravenna stood in simple fighting leathers, looking impossibly small across from him. The crowd had swelled with wolves from every army, all watching this unprecedented challenge. An Omega hasn't fought in ritual combat for 1,000 years, someone whispered. She'll be slaughtered, another replied. Darius stood at the circle's edge, his entire body rigid with tension. Through their bond, she felt his desperate need to take her place, to protect her. But she also felt his growing understanding of what she truly was. Begin, Sylvana called. Steelclaw shifted immediately into his wolf form, large and powerful, though nothing compared to the transformed wolves. He charged, expecting an easy victory against the smaller woman. Ravenna didn't shift. Instead, she moved with impossible grace, sidestepping his attack. Where her hand touched his flank as he passed, silver light bloomed. Steelclaw yelped, stumbling. What Aurelius started, the Omega gift, Sylvana explained. Not strength, but balance. Not dominance, but harmony. Watch. Steelclaw attacked again, and again Ravenna dodged, her touch leaving traces of light. With each contact, the commander slowed, his aggression fading. The crowd murmured in confusion. Fight back, Aurelius commanded. But Ravenna wasn't fighting, she was connecting. Each touch wove a thread between them, temporary bonds that let Steelclaw feel what she felt, see what she saw. His wolf began to recognize her, not as enemy but as something else, something essential. This is impossible, Aurelius breathed. When Steelclaw charged a third time, Ravenna finally shifted. Her massive silver-gold form dwarfed his, but she didn't attack. Instead, she caught him gently, like a mother with a cub, and held him still. Through the temporary bonds she'd created, every wolf in the arena felt it, the wrongness of the binding, the suppression of their true nature, the cage they'd lived in for so long they'd forgotten it was there. Steelclaw shifted back to human, tears streaming down his face. I yield, he said. She's shown me truth. We've been half alive for centuries. No! Aurelius stepped into the circle. I don't accept this. She's using magic, trickery. The ancient wolf's voice boomed. Before Aurelius could respond, power erupted from the ground beneath him. Not violent, but transformative. His body began to change, but not into his wolf form, into something between, something that had been suppressed by the binding. Aurelius screamed, fighting the transformation, but it was inevitable. When it finished, he stood part man, part wolf, what they were always meant to be, forms fluid and changeable, not locked into one or the other person. The binding is breaking, Darius said quietly. Not just for the transformed, but for all of us. Indeed, ripples of change spread through the crowd. Some embraced it, allowing their bodies to shift into new configurations. Others fought, clinging to the familiar. Ravenna shifted back, approaching Aurelius, who knelt in the dirt, staring at his changed hands, fingers that could become claws at will, fur that appeared and disappeared with thought. "This is what they took from us," she said gently. "Not just our size or our magic, but our very nature, fluid, adaptable, free." "It's chaos," Aurelius whispered. "It's choice." She offered him her hand. "Join us. Help us guide this transformation instead of fighting it." Through her bond with Darius, she felt his pride, his awe, and something deeper love, genuine and overwhelming. He'd thought he was getting a marked servant. Instead, he'd found a queen, a revolutionary, his equal in every way. Aurelius looked at her hand for a long moment, then took it. The moment he did, the armies began to disperse. Problem. If their king accepted the change, resistance was pointless. But in the distance, a new horn sounded. Not from the eastern or southern armies, but from the west. The Crimson Witch stood on a ridge, and behind her, an army of humans approached humans who'd heard of the wolves' transformation and feared what it meant for their kind. "The real war," Selvana said sadly, "was never between wolves. It was always about what the humans would do when we reclaimed our true selves." The human army was unlike anything the wolves had faced. Iron weapons, silver nets, and worst of all, machines that belched black smoke and fired projectiles faster than even transformed wolves could dodge. "Technology," Darius said grimly as they watched from the battlements. "While we've clung to tradition, they've advanced." The human general sent an envoy, a young woman wearing strange glass lenses and carrying a white flag. She was brought to the Great Hall, where Ravenna, Darius, and the other kings had gathered. "I am Dr. Sarah Chen," she said, her voice steady despite being surrounded by massive wolves. "I represent the human commonwealth. We've come to discuss terms." "Terms for what?" Ravenna asked. "Your surrender and return to the binding, or coexistence under new treaties. The choice is yours." Aurelius laughed bitterly. "You bring armies to negotiate peace? We bring armies because you've become weapons of mass destruction, Doctor." Chen replied calmly. "A single transformed wolf could level a human city. We've seen the recordings from your demonstration today." She pulled out a thin metal device, and light projected from it, showing images of Ravenna's fight, the transformations, the ancient wolves. The wolves growled at the strange magic, but Ravenna held up a hand for silence. "You've been watching us. We've been watching you for centuries. The binding was never just your ancestors' idea." Dr. Chen's revelation silenced the room. It was a treaty. Humans and wolves working together to prevent mutual destruction. Your kind agreed to limit yourselves, and we agreed to respect your territories. "You knew?" Darius's voice was dangerous. "Humans knew about the binding all along?" "Kaz, our ancestors did. The knowledge was kept by a select few, passed down through generations." "Doctor," Chen adjusted her lenses. "But now the binding is breaking, and the treaty is void. We need new terms." "Or what?" Fenris challenged. "You'll destroy us?" "That or we'll destroy each other." Dr. Chen pulled out another device, showing images of human cities, billions of people. "There are 8 billion humans on this planet. You number in the hundreds of thousands at most. Do you really want a war?" Through their bond, Ravenna felt Darius's rage at the betrayal, his desire to fight. But she also felt his intelligence, his understanding of the numbers. "What do you propose?" Ravenna asked. "Integration. Wolves and humans living openly together. Your strength and magic, our technology and numbers, united." "Doctor." Chen paused. "But with oversight, registration, limits on transformation in populated areas, more chains, Aurelius spat. Mutual protection. Doctor. Chen corrected. We're afraid of you. You should be afraid of us. That fear can lead to war or to respect. And if we refuse? Darius asked. Dr. Chen's expression hardened. Then the armies you see are just the beginning. We have weapons you can't imagine. Gases that prevent transformation. Satellites that can track you anywhere. Bombs that... She stopped as Ravenna stood, power radiating from her, commanding. Not threatening, but commanding attention. You speak of fear and weapons, Ravenna said. But you came here yourself, unarmed, except for your devices. Why? For the first time, Dr. Chen seemed uncertain. Because I volunteered. I study your kind. I've always been fascinated by the shapeshifters, the magic you possess that we lost long ago. Lost? Ravenna stepped closer. Humans had magic? Once. Before we chose technology over mysticism. Some of us. Doctor. Chen hesitated. Some of us still carry the dormant genes. We sense the magic but can't touch it. Ravenna extended her hand, palm up. Give me your hand. I don't trust me. After a long moment, Dr. Chen placed her hand in Ravenna's. The moment they touched, silver light erupted between them. Doctor, Chen gasped, her eyes widening as, for the first time in her life, she felt magic flow through her. This is what the binding took from everyone, Ravenna said softly. Not just from wolves, but from humans too. The magic that connected us all, that made us one people instead of two species. Through the connection, Doctor. Chen saw what Ravenna saw, a world where the boundary between human and wolf dissolved, where magic and technology merged, where fear gave way to wonder. How? Dr. Chen whispered, Kiev. The same way I transform wolves. I don't force change, I reveal what was always there. Ravenna released her hand, but the sensation lingered. Go back to your leaders. Tell them we offer not surrender or war, but evolution, for all of us. 6 months later, Ravenna stood before the United Council, wolves and humans together for the first time in a millennium. The Great Hall had been rebuilt to accommodate both species, with massive doors for transformed wolves and comfortable seating for humans. Darius sat beside her, their bond now so complete they barely needed words. The reciprocal marking that had started as an accident had become the template for a new kind of connection, voluntary bonds between humans and wolves, sharing magic and knowledge. The integration proceeds better than expected, Dr. Chen reported, her own transformation still a wonder. She'd become what they called a bridge human-born, but wolf-touched, able to shift partially, to touch magic while retaining her scientific mind. 30 cities have established mixed districts. The technology magic fusion is yielding incredible results. Not everyone is happy, Aurelius added, though he'd become one of the strongest supporters of integration. Traditional wolves resist human technology. Conservative humans fear our magic. Change is never easy, Ravenna replied. But it's necessary. Fenris entered, his cosmic-touched wolf eyes bright with excitement. Sister, you need to see this. They followed him outside where a crowd had gathered. In the courtyard, a young human child no more than 7 was playing with a wolf cub. As they watched, the child's form shimmered, and suddenly there were 2 cubs playing together. Impossible, someone breathed. A human child shifting? Not impossible. Silvana appeared beside them, smiling. Natural. The old boundaries are dissolving. In a generation, maybe 2, there won't be wolves and humans, just people, with many forms. Is that what you planned? Darius asked Ravenna quietly. When you accepted my mark? She laughed. I plan to save my clan, everything else. She gestured to the transformed world around them. Everything else just happened, close. The best revolutions usually do, he replied, pulling her close. But their moment was interrupted by a messenger, one of the new hybrid communicators, part wolf instinct, part human technology. My lords, my lady, the messenger said urgently. The ancient wolves have returned. All of them. They're gathering at the stone circle, and they're calling for the Omega. Ravenna and Darius exchanged looks. The ancient wolves had disappeared after the first transformation, saying they would return when the world was ready for the next step. They traveled to the stone circle, where indeed, dozens of the massive ancient wolves waited. At their center stood the largest, the one who'd spoken at the challenge. Its voice resonated in everyone's minds. Others? Ravenna asked. The ancient wolf's eyes gleamed. The implications were staggering. Through their bond, Ravenna felt Darius's mix of excitement and concern. Their revolution had just been the beginning. Will you help us? Ravenna asked the ancient wolf. The wolf stood, its massive form blocking out the Sunday. We'll face whatever comes, Darius said, taking Ravenna's hand. Together. The ancient wolf seemed to smile. As if in response to its words, the earth trembled. In the far distance, a mountain that had been dormant for centuries began to smoke. But the smoke formed shapes, wings, scales, ancient eyes opening after eons of sleep, dragons. Dr. Chen breathed, her scientific mind already racing with possibilities. Quote, "The world will never be the same," Aurelius said. No, Ravenna agreed, feeling the weight and wonder of what they'd started. It will be better. She looked at Darius, her mate, her equal, her partner in revolution. The mark on her neck pulsed with warmth, no longer a chain but a choice. Not submission but partnership. Ready for the next adventure? She asked. His smile was answer enough. Together they faced the awakening world, where every ending was just a new beginning, and the little thief who'd stolen a crown had become the architect of a new age. The transformation was complete, but the story, the real story, was just beginning. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the theft that changed everything, Ravenna stood in the vault where it had all began. The crown of shadows rested on its pedestal, moonstone glowing softly in the darkness. Do you know what the crown really is? Selvana asked, appearing in that unsettling way she had. A symbol of power. A magical artifact. A key. Selvana corrected. Your ancestors didn't create it to rule, they created it to lock away the old magic. Every Alpha King who wore it strengthened the binding. Until you... I never wore it. No, you stole it. Broke its connection to the Nightfang line. And in doing so, you unlocked everything it had kept contained. Selvana smiled. The crown chose its moment well. It knew what you were, what you could become, long before you did. Are you saying it wanted to be stolen? I'm saying magic has its own will, its own purpose. It used you, just as you used it. Darius entered, having felt Ravenna's contemplation through their bond. The dragon ambassadors have arrived. They're interesting. Difficult? Magnificent. Terrifying. Completely unreasonable about treasure rights. He pulled her close. Perfect for you to negotiate with. As they left the vault together, Ravenna glanced back at the crown one last time. It seemed to pulse in farewell or perhaps in promise. There were more locks to break, more boundaries to dissolve, more worlds to unite. The little thief had stolen more than a crown. She'd stolen a future for everyone. And in the great hall above, where dragons debated with wolves, where humans worked magic alongside technology, Where the impossible had become every day, the new world continued to unfold. The Alpha King's mark still glowed on her neck, but it was no longer a mark of possession. It was a mark of revolution, of choosing love over law, change over control. And it was just the beginning.